Thank you, everybody, so much for coming today. My name is Andrew Berman from Village Preservation. We're joined today by Manhattan Borough President Gail Brewer, State Senator Brad Hoylman, Assembly Member Deborah Glick. We have Eric Botcher representing Speaker Corey Johnson, who couldn't be here himself today, but who made sure that he was represented. We also have the Historic Districts Council, Village Independent Democrats, and tenants taking control, as well as goals. Good old Lower East Side, our friends from the tenants movement, who are here today with us to roundly condemn the plan by Madison Realty Capital to demolish these buildings, these landmark buildings in the Greenwich Village Historic District, and replace them with a 244-foot tall tower.
That ain't right! No way! No way!
This plan is absolutely wrong and a travesty from every angle to consider it. These buildings were built in 1848. They were landmarked more than 50 years ago. And as you can see from the sign we have up here, over the years they've been home to an incredible array of important historical figures, from Oscar-winning actors to industrialists and inventors, Civil War generals, railroad tycoons. There's a 170-year history encapsulated in these buildings, which this developer wants to destroy and replace with a building that would be the tallest building ever built in a historic district in New York City, 70% taller than the average building on Lower Fifth Avenue in the Greenwich Village Historic District, and 4 times the height of the average building on this block here between 5th and 6th Avenues. That is just wrong.
There goes the no way! No way!
And to add insult to injury, these buildings have had 20 units of good long-term housing, at least 10 of which were affordable rent-regulated units, including ones that use the senior citizen rent increase exemption program, meaning there were seniors on low incomes who were being housed here. The developer is destroying all of that to replace those 20 good units with 18 super luxury units, which will only be pied-à-terre's 3rd, 4th homes for the super rich. This plan is absolutely wrong. And the fact of the matter is it cannot happen. It cannot happen unless the New York City Landmarks Preservation Commission, controlled by Mayor de Blasio, approves it. And we are here today to say to the Landmarks Preservation Commission, say no to this terrible, terrible plan. So I want to ask we're going to keep this moving quickly for, it's a little bit chilly out here. So I'm going to ask our first speaker to come to the megaphone, Manhattan Borough President Gail Brewer.
Thank you very much. It's great to be here because we absolutely have to save 14-16 Fifth Avenue from demolition. We must do this. The last thing Manhattan needs, goodness knows, is another tower full of apartments for the ultra-wealthy, as Andrew Berman stated. And thank you, Andrew Berman. And thank you, Senator Hoylman. And thank you, Eric Botcher, for being here for the speaker. Thank you all. Too many of our neighborhoods are resisting change and overdevelopment. They have too much development in our borough. So it's heartening to see all of us come together in this way. We know the historical significance of this building. The pair of townstones built in 1848, constructed by one of the early of New York's great builders, Henry Brevoort Jr., and combined into apartments in the 1930s. And all of the famous people listed here at this building, actresses, people who were Civil War Union generals, railroad tycoons, philanthropists, people who made a difference in our city. And this Madison Equities has said that their plan is contextually appropriate. No way! the hell are you talking about? So it'll be one thing if it's more affordable housing, but it's not. And we know that removing 20 units, of which at least half were rent stabilized, it's a travesty! So it's absolutely important that the Landmark Preservation Commission listen to the community and to the experts and recognize 14-16 Fifth Avenue as a landmark! Thank you!
Here to stay!
Thank you so much, Borough President Brewer. Our next speaker, who lives quite nearby, is State Senator Brad Hoylman.
Yay!
Thank
Give
you.
him hell, Brad.
Thank you. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Press the button. Press and hold it. Oh, there's your mouth. Good morning, villagers! Yes, I do live nearby, so close I could probably see my daughter hanging out the window from here. I'm State Senator Brad Hoylman. Let me tell you something. The purchaser and the applicant for the demolition of these buildings behind us is one of New York City's worst landlords.
Say that again.
Madison Realty Capital. Remember that. Madison Realty Capital, as our friends from Cooper Square Committee know, is responsible for the gentrification and the demolition and the harassment of dozens and dozens of rent-stabilized tenants across Manhattan. Let's give a big Bronx cheer for Madison Realty Capital. So it should be no surprise that one of New York's worst landlords is attempting to puncture, to demolish, to destroy the intention behind the Greenwich Village Historic District. What is the point of a historic district if you can break through it with a bad actor like Madison Realty Capital?
No!
Way.
Scoundrels!
And to make matters worse, as has been said, they have already forced out dozens of rent-stabilized tenants from these buildings behind us. And to add insult to injury, they are attempting to do it just steps away from where Robert Moses tried to drive a highway through Washington Square Park. Well, I got news for Madison Realty Capital. Just like villagers, including Jane Jacobs, defeated Robert Moses' plans, we're going to defeat Madison Realty Capital's plans. We are going to protect the Greenwich Village Historic District. Am I right?
Yes! Right.
We're going to protect rent-stabilized housing in the village. Am I right?
Yes!
We're going to defeat this plan. Am I right?
Yes!
Thank you. Thank you, GVSHP. Thank you so much, Senator Hoylman. Our next speaker, a longtime advocate for this community, longtime member of the State Assembly, Deborah Glick.
Thank you so much for being here today. Senator Hoylman said it all, but of course it hasn't been said by everybody. So let me just say that historic districts were created to preserve our history and architecturally significant buildings. Our historic districts provide a web of protection, and that web cannot and should not be unraveled for individual or corporate greed. This is just one of many attempts to destroy what has taken generations to build, and that is a commitment to landmarks and historic districts. And are we going to let it happen? No! I don't think I can hear you. No! We are going to be united, and everybody here and everybody they know are going to make their voices heard at the Landmarks Preservation Commission. Yes. You don't have to wait for a hearing, you can start today. We
All
have
right.
to make certain that this stalking horse does not ride through our community, destroying landmarks and our historic district. Thank you.
Everyone!
Landmarks!
And by the way, that hearing has not been scheduled yet, but as soon as it is, we will let you know, and we need to all be down there in force with our elected officials, with our fellow preservation groups, with tenant groups, to say to the commission, no. The next speaker I want to ask to come up is Eric Botcher, representing Speaker Johnson, who represents the west side of Fifth Avenue, where the proposed building is to be built.
Thank you, Andrew. This year, we are celebrating the 50th anniversary of the Greenwich Village. We are celebrating the 50th anniversary of the Greenwich Village Historic District. We are standing in the heart of that district. People from around the world come to this place to experience the same unmistakable sense of history and place that we are experiencing right now. It is unique in the world. That is why this neighborhood was one of the first historic districts established by the New York City Landmarks Commission 5 decades ago. The purpose of the Landmarks Law is to ensure that historic landmarks and historic districts are not destroyed or fundamentally altered. It is our responsibility, our duty, to ensure that the integrity of this district is maintained so that future generations can experience this special place. We are merely stewards of this historic district. During our short time here, we are its caretakers. Future generations will look back at what we did today, right here, right now. They are counting on our city to make the right decision. Will our city protect this historic district? Will it ensure that the New York City Landmarks Law is properly enforced? On behalf of New York City Council Speaker Corey Johnson, I want to thank Village Preservation, Borough President Gail Brewer, State Senator Brad Hoylman, Assemblymember Deborah Glick, VID, and everyone else who's making their voices heard in defense of the Greenwich Village Historic District. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, and it's great to have such strong support on this from our elected officials, which we're definitely going to need. Before I call up our next speaker, I just want to quickly point to this over here. Look at how tall that building would be compared to the building to the north, which is one of the tallest buildings anywhere here. This is completely inappropriate. And again, if you look at the bottom, you can see the names of some of these great people who lived in this building over the years. Bret Harte, the great chronicler of the California Gold Rush, General Daniel Sickles of the Battle of Gettysburg. In the more recent history, Miriam Bachmann, who was the very first woman to head the Manhattan Democratic Party and the very first reformer. Celeste Holm, the Academy Award-winning actress. Isaac Singer, who revolutionized the sewing machine. These are incredible contributors to our history that Madison Realty Capital wants to simply destroy for 18 units for super rich people who probably will barely ever even be in these apartments. So our next speaker represents preservation from a citywide perspective and has an understanding of how this is a battle not just for this neighborhood but for the whole city and the importance of maintaining the integrity of our landmarks law. Simeon Bankoff from the Historic Districts Council.
50 years ago, when dozens, if not hundreds of villagers campaigned for years to get the Greenwich Village Historic District designated, it was to be for all time, not until 2020 when Madison Realty decided that they might have a better plan. The point of historic districts is that we are to preserve them. This plan proposes to unravel the very law that protects some of New York's best, most popular, most historic areas. Not only Greenwich Village, but the Upper West Side, the Upper East Side, Park Slope, Brooklyn Heights, Douglaston, Mott Haven in the Bronx. These are all areas that, should this proposal be approved, are looking at utter devastation. If we're looking at, well, you have a historic district, you have these buildings are landmarked, but they're, what, they only landmarked for 50 years? They had a good run? I don't think so. Are these people freaking kidding? We cannot allow this to happen. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Simeon, and I'm so glad we have allies from across the city in this fight. And we also have allies in the tenants movement, and our next speaker, Sally Young, from Tenants Taking Control, represents a group of tenants in Madison Realty Capital Properties who've had a terrible, terrible time dealing with them as their landlord, and she's going to speak to their experience and how we don't want to import that into our neighborhood. Sally?
I'm a rent-stabilized tenant, and I live in a building in the East Village Historic District.
Closer to your mouth.
Now owned by Madison Realty Capital. I have lived there for 30 years, and I am a member of the TTC, Tenants Taking Control. In 2015, Madison loaned a considerable amount of money to Rafael Toledano to buy a portfolio of buildings in the East Village that had been owned by the Tabak family. The buildings were fully occupied with both rent-stabilized and market-rate tenants. As soon as Toledano bought the buildings, he began to try to empty them. First, the market-rate tenants went, who would not get their leases renewed. Others were given money to move out immediately. He emptied the commercial storefronts the same way. Then he went to the rent-regulated tenants, suing them over frivolous things and offering buyouts. Some took the buyouts, but those who did not were now subjected to demolition of apartments done illegally, accompanied by phone calls to ask us how the construction was going, asking if we'd like a buyout and telling us the construction would get worse. In my building, which now has 4 occupied apartments out of 10, demolition began on 3 apartments that had recently been renovated and were fully rentable as is. When they did the one next to me, the whole building shook as if it were to fall down. The workmen broke into the wiring in the wall adjoining the kitchen and knocked out all the electricity in the back half of my apartment. The dust was terrible, and when lead levels were tested, they were found to be elevated.
That ain't right.
The workmen did not follow proper cleaning rules, and lead, dust, and debris was all over. Nothing was finished, and no apartments were rented, even though the last 3 emptied were not demolished and could have been rented. The buildings went into foreclosure. I believe this is what Madison Realty Capital had planned when they loaned the money to Toledano in the first place. I believe he was given the loan to empty the buildings of tenants, thinking that everyone would leave because he was harassing them. I've noticed that Madison Realty Capital, who now owns the buildings, has rented very few apartments and none of the rentable ones in my building. I believe warehousing apartments when people need homes is wrong, and it also becomes a safety issue for tenants who continue to reside in the buildings when apartments sit demolished. I don't think that Madison Realty Capital cares about rent-regulated tenants or their homes.
Or the city.
Or whether they will have a home to go to if they are thrown out. Rent laws were designed to protect tenants. Historic districts were designed to protect buildings. I don't believe that Madison Realty Capital wants to follow either of these rules, and by that alone, I feel they should be stopped.
Thank you so much, Sally. No bad actors in our neighborhood.
No bad actors in our neighborhood.
And I want to point something out from Sally's story here. When they bought this modest building, they paid a huge sum of it and immediately began the process of getting the tenants out of there. They clearly believed that the fix was in and that they would be able to demolish these buildings and build this high-rise for the super rich. We have to show them that the fix is not in, and we have to demand of the mayor and the Landmarks Preservation Commission that they do their job, they preserve this building. The fact that they spent a ton of money to get tenants out of there is no reason to reward them by letting them destroy a landmark and build a totally out of context tower in the middle of the Greenwich Village Historic District. I want to acknowledge, by the way, we're joined by State Assembly Member Harvey Epstein, who worked with those tenants in the East Village a great deal, and we really appreciate his being here. Our next speaker is Catherine Wolpe from the Village Independent Democrats. Catherine, where are you?
All right, Catherine.
Hi, I'm Catherine B. Wolpe, former president of the Village Independent Democrats, a progressive democratic club since 1957. We strongly oppose the demolition of 1416 Fifth Avenue to allow construction of a 21-story building. Miriam Bachman, a former district leader here with Ed Koch, and the only female to serve as the Democratic district leader of New York County from 1977 to 1981, lived in this address for many years. Many of our members live in the Greenwich Village Historic District, and I personally live in the St. Mark's Historic District in the East Village. I am also a longtime member of St. Mark's Church in the Bowery. Keeping original buildings preserves the unique character of New York neighborhoods as well as their history. Longtime residents are involved in local issues and conditions and work to eliminate problems such as loud bars and drug dealing, which have a negative impact on the community. While tall buildings are sometimes located in historic districts, they are vulnerable to electrical shutdowns and put additional stress on local infrastructure such as water pipes, sewer pipes, transportation, schools, and parks. There is also a much greater need for affordable and senior housing than more luxury apartments. We strongly urge denial of the proposed demolition and of the construction of this 21-story building for the resulting negative impact on its local neighborhood.
I just want to ask, actually, before we close out, Assemblymember Harvey Epstein to say a couple of words.
Give him hell, Harvey.
Good morning, everyone. Good morning, everyone. We all came out here on a cold Friday to stand up for our communities. And I want to really honor the work that Andrew and GVHP has done. Your Assemblywoman, a leader, Deborah Glick, your borough president, your senator. You have amazing representation here. And together, we're going to fight this plan.
Yes.
The reason we need to fight is because it's not the first or the last time this is going to happen. This will happen time and time again. From people like Madison, who've chosen to destroy my community with so many projects just like this, to try to push the tenants out, to bring higher income, market rate tenants, to say that they could change the character and community of our neighborhood, and to demolish existing buildings. We need to stand together and fight this, because I know together we are stronger. Thank you all for being here. And let's fight this plan and get Landmarks to do the right thing.
Thank you so much. So, thank you everybody for coming out on this freezing morning. Thank you to our elected officials. Borough President Gail Brewer, State Senator Brad Hoylman, Assembly Member Deborah Glick, and Assembly Member Harvey Epstein from the East Village, Eric Botcher representing Speaker Johnson, Historic Districts Council, BID, TTC. Thank you to you, but this is just the beginning.
That's right.
As I said, make sure you're on our email list so that we notify you when those hearings have been set. We'll let you know when you can come. We'll let you know when you can testify. We'll let you know how you can send letters to make sure that the commission and the mayor know that we're opposed to the plan. You know, they've slowed down this plan considerably, and I think it's because they've seen this firestorm of opposition, which they thought they were going to be able to blow over, but they were totally mistaken. And this is just the beginning. So as soon as they come out with their official application, we will publicize it, and we will let you know how you can write to the mayor, to the Landmarks Preservation Commission when those hearings are scheduled for. So just keep in touch. We will let you know, but trust me, this is not going away unless we make it go away. Thank you very, very much, everybody.
Beautiful revolution is coming.